Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please join me in welcoming our webcast viewers. My name is Gillian Riley, and I have the distinct pleasure of being the president of the Canadian Club of Toronto. Viewers, thank you for joining us. Je m'appelle Gillian Riley, présidente du Club canadien de Toronto. Bonjour les téléspectateurs, merci de nous rejoindre sur Internet d'aujourd'hui. Our club offers members and guests a diversity of opinions that reflect the multi-dimensional nature of Canada's vibrant democracy. In creating innovative and relevant programming, we strive to ensure not only a diversity of perspectives, but of speakers as well. Here, we offer access to dynamic political, business, and public figures, and today's guest is a great example. Before I formally introduce Blake, here's a snapshot of some upcoming events that you may want to attend. On April 23rd, we have the Premier of our province, the Honourable Kathleen Wynne. On Monday, May 7th, Ali Velshi, anchor of MSNBC, will be in conversation with Amanda Lang, talking about fake news and being a news anchor in the Trump era. To order tickets or to learn more about the club, please visit our website at canadianclub.org. You can also visit and join the conversation via Twitter and Instagram by following us at CDNCLUBTO or by using that hashtag. I want to express special thanks to today's event sponsors: Bruce Power, represented by James Skonjak, E&Y, represented by Eric Rawlinson, and Tories LLP, represented by Richard Willoughby. Thank you very much for your generous support. I also want to acknowledge the youth and young leaders who are with us today. Thanks to E&Y and Green Soil Building Innovation Fund, we have today with us, and if you could please stand so we could recognize you, from the University of Waterloo School of Planning and the Rotman School of Management. Please stand. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Today's event is also supported by Carpenters District Council through their AV sponsorship. We appreciate that their support will allow us to see the great work they have done with Oxford on these screens. Thank you. And now to our guest speaker. Members and guests, let me remind you, if you have any questions or comments for our speaker, please jot them down on the Q&A cards that have been provided at your tables, and we will collect them later on. We are extremely pleased to have the chair of the Oxford Properties Group and how it became a global real estate powerhouse. Oxford's portfolio is as long as it is impressive. It includes more than 50 million square feet of property in key global markets. Mr. Hutcheson has had a distinguished career at OMERS, the $100 billion pension plan at OMERS. He was recently named President and Chief Pension Officer. Previously, he served as OMERS Chief Investment Officer of Real Estate and Platform Investments. The Oxford's chair's deep experience in real estate includes serving as President and CEO of Oxford for a period beginning in 2010. Prior to that, he served as the head of global real estate investing for a multi-strategy private equity firm. For a 9-year period beginning in 1999, he was the chairman and president of C.B. Richard Ellis Canada and Latin America. Mr. Hutcheson holds a master's degree in real estate development from Columbia University, and his expertise has supported many boards and committees. These include serving on the Toronto Mayor's Task Force on Affordable Housing, chairing Build Toronto, and chairing the Canadian Real Estate Forum. He is very widely regarded as a top real estate expert and has been named one of the 100 most powerful real estate executives in New York City, and a distinguished alumni from Columbia University and an icon of the industry by BOMA Canada. Please join me in turning the podium over to Blake Hutcheson.
Good afternoon. Everyone can hear me. I am humbled and honored to be asked to speak in this historical club. I have to say I'm a little disappointed it takes place in an Ivanhoe Cambridge building, but so be it. But I am pleased, actually, that we sold more tables than the cannabis panel recently, which says something these days. So, now listen, I wanted to thank Nikki Holland, a dear friend of mine who's with the Carpenters Union, who asked me many months ago to do this. And it couldn't be more timely because, as has been suggested, I've had an opportunity in just the last week to go from leading Oxford, which has been a period of great and proud times, to getting much more involved with OMERS with a tremendous opportunity. So this is, frankly, the last time I get to tell the Oxford story where anybody's going to give me any credit whatsoever. So I figured I might as well get it in while the getting is good. And frankly, it'll be a time where I still have my hands on the wheel a bit, so I can tell you some inside stories that may be of use. Like anybody who's asked to do this stuff, I researched some of the prior speakers, and a reasonably impressive group since 1897. And it wasn't lost on me this weekend when I looked at this list to suggest that I may be the least impressive speaker that this club has ever had. So if your lunch is good, you're also experiencing a little history here. You'll take those two things away if nothing else. I'm also going to submit that, notwithstanding that, and I look around the room and I mean this very seriously, I'm going to say in the 120 years that you've had this event, there aren't many, if any, that have stood at this podium with more friends in this room. And I look at my family is here. I have friends from high school here. I have friends from my various universities here. I have friends, colleagues from my past and present. I have many of our dear friends from Oxford and OMERS. We have customers here. We have partners here. And many of the service providers that have made us look good for multiple decades. So I feel very blessed to have all of you, dear friends, in this room. And I'm not surprised. I am surprised in a few cases that you'd actually part with the money to attend. And I'm pretty sure there's a fair number of vacant spaces at those corporate tables, so you were able to infill. But I do feel most grateful for your friendship and support, and you know what that means to me. Now, as I reflected on the topic today, and I tried to dub what the speech should be called, and as I reflected on the history of this great club, I thought the only thing that I could build a speech as was Oxford Properties, a truly Canadian success story. And if you look at this club, it was founded in 1897, and in my view, it's become part of the fabric of Canadian life, connecting Canadians to influencers at home and abroad on the important issues and the important events of our times. And this club has endured through good times and bad, stayed highly relevant, and become a symbol of Canadian strength and stability. And I hope, as you listen to our story, the Oxford story, similarly, you will say this entity has endured through good times and bad, stayed highly relevant, and become a symbol of Canadian strength and stability. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Oxford story started in 1960 in Edmonton, Alberta. The Love family and the Poole family started PCL. The Love family went on to build Oxford and are well known to many of you with a single building. And it was a 10,000 square foot building in Edmonton, Alberta. Over the next several decades, building by building, town by town, city by city, it became a household name for excellence in the real estate business. And fast forward to today, it is a $50 billion global empire that is anchored right here in Canada. And for those of you who are here in Toronto and don't know our assets, things like, with partners, and some of them are owned with many partners, Yorkdale, Square One, Canada Town Centre, Scarborough Town Centre. If you look at 21 office buildings, I think, here in Toronto, roughly 30% of the A-class office space here in Toronto, so that's a story. And for a Canadian context, many of you may not know we own Banff Springs Hotels, Shadow Lake Louise, Jasper Park Lodge, Whistler, Shadow Whistler. If anybody wants a room, talk to me after. I'll take a credit card. We'll never lose an opportunity to sell. But that gives you an idea of the organization here in Canada. It is a company that has been founded by Canadians, built by Canadians, and is owned by Canadians, and it will be owned by Canadians, I think, for the decades to come. From a math perspective, and most of you are Bay Street types, I think the last, at least the last 5 years, we've been among the 20 most profitable companies in Canada. We've generated roughly $2 billion of dividends for OMERS, our stakeholder. We've been, I think, by any measure that I can judge, I think we are clearly one of the 5 greatest real estate platforms in the world today, and there are some competitors who even parted with money for tables who may argue differently, but that's the way I see it. And when you look at that, it's important to put that, before this room, because I think you'd agree we live in the greatest country in the world, but we sometimes don't acknowledge or celebrate our successes here at home. And I would say it seems to be pleasure in lots of us talking about the demise of the Eatons, the Zellers, the Simpsons, the Dominion stores, the Nortels, recently, sadly, the Sears. There's lots of conversation on Bay Street about great Canadian household names that have gone to foreign control, the Molsons, the Labatts, the Four Seasons, the Fairmont, Tim Hortons, but we often don't celebrate our successes enough. And in that, I mean, without even trying, you think of Barrick, you think of the late Peter Monk, biggest gold company in the world. You think of Magna, 320 manufacturing plants around the world. You think of the swath that the Thomson Reuters family have cut and what Bombardier has done for all of us, notwithstanding tough times, representing the transportation industry in 200 countries around the world. So pretty great stories. And the real estate story in this country is one of those. And part of that is because it was made okay by Canadian pension plan legislation, and I won't get into the details. It has allowed the Canadian pension plans to own platforms. So Cadillac Fairview, owned by teachers, great company. Ivanhoe Cambridge, pretty good company. Owned by the Caisse de Depot. And Brookfield, amazing story around the world, and Oxford is one of those stories. And so I think it's important when there are 200 countries in the world and you look around, you should be very proud of the swath the Canadian real estate industry has cut, and you should be very proud, I hope, because I'm not here to talk about the competitors, of the story I'll tell about Oxford, which is one about pioneering, it's one about family, and it's one about unlocking a dream. Speaking of family, I'll give you a little context as to my upbringing. I grew up in Huntsville, Ontario. My family came to Canada in 1850, and they migrated up to the Huntsville area in a little after the Confederation. And they went up there like everybody else with a land grant, hoping to farm, and they were dirt poor. And it took them about 30 years to figure out the only thing you can farm up there is lumber and rocks and the odd cottage lot. We're slow learners. But the good news is, for the last 100 and some odd years, once we figured it out, that's what the family had been doing. And my grandfather, who's been an inspiration to me, he's F.W. Hutcheson on the screen. He ran away from a one-room schoolhouse in Huntsville, went off and joined the Royal Navy, and defended our country in the First World War, and came back with his eyes wide open. Because he said, there's 35 countries in the world out there, and we have a lot of timber in this community. Maybe we have an opportunity. So for the next 50 years, with a little planing mill, he built, to the best of my knowledge, the largest hardwood flooring manufacturing company in Canada, and some family members would argue the world. I'm not sure anyone can verify it. And he taught me 2 great lessons. He lived until 93 in perfect health. And the first thing he said to all the family members is, I just wish I could teach you the lessons of cycles. He said, no matter what, over a 50-year period, we employed between 500 and 700 people in that community, and we never went to 2 shifts. We didn't want to wreck the equipment, and we didn't want to lay people off. It was about keeping the community alive. And he said, and in the good times, his salespeople would quit. Why? Because we couldn't meet the orders. And in the bad times, he would stockpile lumber to the heavens. Everyone thought he was crazy, but when the market turned, he was the only one in the world with his product. And that left him in pretty good stead. And he said, no matter what, whenever you think it's too good to be true, it usually is. And no matter when you think it is just a disaster, load your gun, take up every opportunity you can, because Canada is a great country. It will always recover. Remember the lessons of cycles. He also was, a key proponent of getting close to his customers. And he would get on a plane, but in those days, early days, a boat, and he sold product to 33 countries in the world. And he would go to the homes of the families that distributed his timber, and he'd stay with them, and he'd get to know their families, and he made it personal. And he always said to the family, if you're going to interact with them, get to know them. By the way, it's important. By the way, it's fun. And when you do that, the rest will come. So the two lessons I took from my grandfather were those two things. My father, we sold the company in 1960. My father was young at the time, and he convinced my grandfather to keep any asset we had that touched shoreline. So he said, I know it has no value in the sale of the business, but I'm pretty sure it'll have value one day. So he kept about 20,000 acres of land and 20 miles of shoreline in this little community north of here. Wasn't worth much, and it seemed to be a pretty good idea at the time. And most of Dad's life, he farmed those lands, he sold Christmas trees, he built an aggregate business, which was sort of the cash cow to build little roads and develop cottage lots. And the two lessons my father taught me, the first is finishtive. He goes, everybody has initiative. That's the easy part. The trick to life is finishtive. It's actually taking things and getting them over the finish line. That is how you get ahead. And the other, lesson, and he put it a different way, but he basically said, the reason you guys go off to these fancy business schools is to learn that money's worth more today than it is tomorrow, which is why you discount cash flows. But let me tell you something, real estate's worth tomorrow than it is today. So get your money out of your pocket, get it into real estate, and you guys will do okay. So those were sort of the lessons of my dad. He happens to be here today. He's in perfect health. He's 91, Bob Hutcheson. By the way, he flew back from Montana last night. He skied the last 60 days. So he's the under 100 ski champion at the Yellowstone Club last week. So I've been blessed with those lessons in life. Here's the family. I won't bore you with it. There's Dad with his family around him. That was a car that he gave my mother in 1972. She died 20 years ago, but we keep it tuned up to remember her. And my lovely wife, Sue, is there. I have two kids. Camille is in Atlantic, Canada, taking a fine arts degree. I put her picture in black and white because I never know what hair color she has. And our son, he's now at Queen's. He's my best friend. I'm about his 15th best friend. And he's studying. And there's my old man, 89 years old, water skiing on his 89th birthday. So there you go. Yeah. I won't bore you with the career and receding hairline story, but I'll highlight a few things. I went to Western, I went to LSE, and I came back. I didn't have a clue what I was going to do, and I went back home. And Dad and I were working on a few little projects, and there was a request for proposal to build a courthouse for the town of Huntsville. And so we negotiated this deal with the Ministry of Government Services. I don't think Premier Harris was in at the time, but we cut a deal. And to my astonishment, it cost $1.1 million to build an 11,000 square foot building. We went to the TD Bank, and the TD Bank said, we'll loan you $1.3 million against it. Because I figured out for the first time, you can get a loan against value, not cost. And I thought, man, the real estate business is easy. And by the way, I've never had that happen again. Like, it was an early thing. And so I took a little bit of the money we made, and I ran off to Columbia University to study it, and most of my career has been in the real estate business. I'll highlight another thing. After a spectacular time with many of the people in this room at CBRE, I retired from there to start a fund when the markets melted down in 08 and 09, and we raised about $3 billion. Me and my best friend and I and a few others in New York set up a fund to invest in distressed assets. And frankly, I missed my country. And I was down in New York, I was missing my family, and I was reminded why in this country your word means something, and if you cut a deal on a handshake, that's a lot. And I was delighted to be asked to come back to run Oxford Properties in January 2010. It was a dream of mine. I had always been a big fan of the organization, and that's when my career meshed with that of Oxford. The Oxford story started in 1960, as we suggested, with the Love family. In 1995, after a disastrous economy, you'll all remember in the early 90s what happened to the real estate business, they went public. OMERS itself started a real estate division in 1993. then we bought out, we took private Oxford, that platform, in 2001, and that brought together this unbelievable operating platform and this unbelievable balance sheet. And so that was the beginning of that formula that has just been so terrific. And fast forward to 2010, it's a 50th anniversary, and the business is worth $16.9 billion. And that's when I arrived, and I sat down with an unbelievable team, and we said, okay, what is the dream? What could this look like? And we sat down with OMERS, and we said, how much equity can we get? Because it all starts there. And they said, probably by 2015, we can get you $10 billion, and by 2020, we can get you $20 billion. And so that's the beginning of a story that we grew. So we said, all right, we have $20 billion of equity. We'll ultimately, our initial goal will be 10, 10, and 10 in 2030. In 2015 to be a $30 billion business, so $10 billion of equity, we'll lever it 1-to-1, and then we'll bring in partners, and those partners will pay fees to help keep the cost of the business down. And I remember the first meeting, and we put that up, and our senior team said, that's ridiculous. It's taken 50 years to get to 17 billion. How do you get to 30 billion in 5? And we actually bettered the instruction. And today we're roughly a $50 billion business, and we roughly have $17 billion of OMERS equity, roughly $17 billion of OMERS allocation, and we've blossomed it into this company, and we'll get into that in a second. The other thing we realized in 2010, a business plan is about three things. It's about what am I great at, how do I get in the way of a trend, given limited resources. So we were saying, these are the three things we're great at. We need to diversify. How do we get into the best markets in the world, given our limited resources? And we knew that a company that was 87% invested in Canada had to diversify. Hal Jackman, who's had an influence on me for years, always said, if you want to get rich, put your chips on one square, and if you want to stay rich, diversify. So the objective for all of us was to diversify. And this next chart's sort of busy, but I'll try to simplify it. And that was, we started with the dream, and then in order to grow the business, we identified a few cities in the world where we just believed in the fundamentals. And if you remember in 2010, there was a pretty serious global meltdown. And we knew, like my grandfather said, that that was the time to load up. And so we targeted London, we targeted Paris, we targeted New York, Washington, Boston. Those are the cities we chose early on because you have to start somewhere. And we knew that to jump on a plane and outsmart local people was impossible. So we needed our own people on the ground. We needed to build our own relationships. So we set up offices in those cities, and we started to build relationships. We'd bid on things we'd hopefully lose so we could learn from them. And then I'll talk to them in more detail, but New York, we had a breakthrough with Hudson Yards. In London, we had a breakthrough with the Leadenhall building. In Paris, with Sarkozy and Hollande, when everybody said don't go there, we said, okay, that's the time for us to go there. So we bought 4 significant assets in Paris. We bird-dogged in Boston for a number of years, didn't do much. And then in 1 year, we became the second biggest landlord with JP Morgan in the city of Boston. And then we did a monumental transaction with our friends. They gave them the cheap seats back there, CPPIB. They don't deserve it. They've been big partners of ours. But we did a monumental transaction with them to help us recapitalize our business. And then we've gone global. We've opened our markets up to Berlin and elsewhere, and recently done a monumental transaction in Berlin. But it started with a dream. It started with doing incremental things. It started with our own people on the ground. And then all that while, we were building our platform, focused on sustainable intelligence, focused on customer service, focused on managing with pride. And we felt at the time that we had a litany of competitors in Canada, and no disrespect to the competitors in Canada, and many of you bought tables today. We woke up now, we've woken up recently, we really think our truly global competitors, we still have lots here, are Brookfield and Blackstone from a platform standpoint. So we've gone from being in a cluster in Canada to being, we think, among the 3 or 4 or maybe 5 biggest players in the world. A few of the building blocks, and I'll just tell you a little bit of the color because it'll be fun, and then I'll get off the stage. But in London, when we went there, nobody knew who we were. Nobody knew who OMERS was. Nobody knew who Oxford was. And we knew that we needed something that would change the game. And we knew that we needed a monumental transaction. So we actually sat down with British Land. They're the leader of that business, a gentleman named Chris Craig, had been a longtime friend, and we kept saying, when you're ready to build this building in the City of London, we will be your partner. And because he's a REIT, it doesn't behoove him to pour out too much money for development. And so it made sense for him to bring in a partner because they're measured by their cash flow, and so developments are a little dangerous for REITs because it could affect their stock price. So we said, we'll be half your partner. Long story short, we shook hands one day and loved the model. This building, 619,000 square feet, designed by Sir Richard Rogers, I think the most exquisite building that's ever been put on the skyline in London. And we said, we'll go spec with you. We will spec the development. It's 500 million pounds, half you, half us, we'll go. And we'll go back and ask our board's permission, would you do the same? I jumped on a plane and I get a call the next day from his CFO who said, listen, can I come to see you? So he flew across and he was kind of a curmudgeon and he said, you said that you would go spec. How do I know that your word means anything? And I said, well, first of all, I'm a Canadian. You know, there you go. And second of all, I took a bagel napkin out. I said, we'll go spec. And I signed it. I go, you can take that back to your board. In any event, our board supported us, as they always do. We built this building. It was finished in late 2015. And we were going to keep it long-term. And then the 23rd of June of 2016 happened with the Brexit vote. We decided to take it to market. And late last year, we sold the building we built for 500 million pounds for 1.15 billion pounds. So the profit on a single asset, 1 billion and 60 million Canadian dollars, all because in the difficult times, in the bad times, we had the courage to go and do something pretty significant. And by the way, a big part of the reason we did this wasn't because we thought that we would ever reach that goal. It was that we thought if we had a presence in London, we could build a business around it. And that's exactly what's happened. We now have 80 employees in that market. We are a force, and it is now, you know, an Oxford Properties in the country of the UK in a few short years. Similarly, in New York, nobody knew who we were. We went down. I was a freshly minted CEO in January 2010. We got a call in February that said, would we be interested in joining hands with the related group of companies to embark upon the largest American development, the largest real estate development in American history. So this is the Hudson Yards project. And luckily, there was a Canadian, Jay Cross, who was the president of this project, who we'd all grown up with, many of us in this room. So he called, and we had a relationship. And they had to move quickly because they had a short option on a 26-acre site on the island of Manhattan, and they needed us. So we said, okay, we'll be 50-50 partners in the GP, and try taking your first big deal to the board for a $25 billion development project, which is impossible to underwrite. But what our team was able to do was simplify it and say, this is just a land deal. And if we build a platform over 13 acres of tracts at roughly $1.3 billion, our total land cost will be about $300 in a market where the land cost was $800 everywhere else. So we had a competitive advantage. So this has been an amazing run for us. Anybody who's in New York, please let us know. We have people who give tours daily. If you walk up the north end of the High Line and look in, you will see a big banner that says Oxford and OMERS. I hope you'll feel the same pride that we do for not only Canada, but for Oxford and OMERS, because this is an incredible story. And we've been able to build a company around this, because as soon as it's the most written about project probably in world history. And so everybody we deal with knows, hey, you guys have done this, and it's enabled us to do so much more. This is Berlin, and we think Berlin may be the best investment opportunity in the world today. The city's GDP alone is about a 6%. It's a 4 million person city with about 120,000 net migrants a year. It's a technology center. The youth want to be there. And so we've been in and around it for 3 years, and then late last year, not unlike Leadenhall, not unlike Hudson Yards, we bought what we think is the most impressive asset in Berlin. It was 1.111 billion pounds, 1.7 billion Canadian dollars. We bought it on our own. And this is on the front page of every modern Germany book you've seen. And again, it'll enable us to build an Oxford property story around this for the next decade or two. And we're pretty excited about it and proud of another Canadian story in a big competitive city. This is a local one. We can't ignore that. We're very active in this city, and for those of you who are here from the city, and I know many of you are, this city, we're operating in 17 cities in the world. This city has been terrific to us. They move things quickly, and all the noise you hear about, difficulty with permitting and everything else. They've been so good to us. We just completed 100 Adelaide. We think it's one of the nicest buildings ever to be constructed in Canada. We preserved an historical building. Cone, Pettis, and Fox wrapped the design around it. Great natural light. Many of our partners, tenants are here with us, and so if you get a chance to go see it, you should. We restored some J.H. MacDonald original Group of 7 paintings in the lobby that are sensational, and it gives us OMERS, because we've moved all of OMERS into one location, a spot to grow and work together in the decades ahead. So the Oxford today is a $50 billion business, roughly 200 assets, roughly 65 million square feet, and we have at any given time about 25, 27 development projects that can generate about 200 basis points a year. So if we weren't in the development business, we couldn't unlock those additional basis points. And in the spirit of diversity, we now have a company that is only 55% Canada. We're still growing in Canada, but we're deep in Europe, deep in the U.S., and we have diversified in many ways. We're $3 billion in sales. We don't have one customer that's more than 5% of our revenue. We don't have one asset that's more than 5% of our portfolio. We've diversified by geography. We've diversified by office, retail, and the other food groups, and we're trying to build the most fortified, best portfolio imaginable that can see through cycles as this club has. That's a story of some of our assets, and it's a living organism. We continue to sell out our older assets and replace them with the best assets we can. And what we try to do is, I think Warren Buffett said it best, you try to buy great assets at a good price. You're not smart enough to buy good assets at a great price. So we just focus on the very best assets you can the world over. That's been our return history, which we put up against any real estate company in the world today. And this has helped us with the board. We go to the board and we say we've grown from $17 billion to $50 billion. We have taken it costs us roughly $250 million to run the business, but we now have fees that generate about $220 million. So it really costs us a net $30 million to run a $50 billion business that's been generating these kinds of returns. And the board say, how much money do you guys need? And they've been very supportive in that sense. This is another way of putting it. If you put $100 in Oxford in 2000, it would be worth about $600 today, which has outperformed the S&P and any of the global real estate indexes. And I just want to close by saying there's a lot of credit that should go around, and this is not an individual story. It's an amazing story of people and partners everywhere. I'm so blessed. I've had the best senior team that anybody could have anywhere in the world. I would put them up against anybody. Our most senior team, we had equal and opposite strengths. This is so deep. Everywhere I have gone, we've been proud of the execution of these people. We've had tremendous partners, including many in Canada, Brookfield, PSP, AIMCO, CPP, BCIMC, and it's been a huge competitive advantage for us to be Canadian because anywhere we go in the world, again, our word means something. We've had a very simple plan. I think Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, the odds are you're going to end up somewhere else. And we've been very focused. We've been believing in urbanization, believing in the cities that we're investing in. And we're not investing in countries, we're investing in cities, and then we're investing in city blocks within those cities where we really like the fundamentals. And we've been very prescribed and very focused. So if anybody comes up and says, would you like to do a deal in South America, the answer is no. If anybody says, how about Chicago, the answer is no. So we've been able to focus the whole team, and there's nobody in our organization that can't say, by 2020, we're 20-20-20 by 2020. We're $20 billion of equity, $20 billion of debt, $20 billion of third party in these cities. We know what our asset classes are, and it helps you focus the whole organization on those goals. And I can't say enough about the support we've had by OMERS, both the parent and the purpose of the parent. And I'll just focus on three numbers here. The first is it's fast approaching a $100 billion net asset business. And OMERS today makes at or about $10 billion. And to put that in perspective, with 3,200 people, roughly 2,200 at Oxford and another 1,000. The Royal Bank today, I think, makes $11.5 billion with roughly 85,000 people. And Royal Bank's the biggest corporation in Canada. Now, it's a different structure. Ours is big equity, and what Royal Bank's been able to do in a Canadian context is world-class. But it just shows you that the Canadian pension plans are starting to be among the biggest players by any commercial measure in the country. But the real number I want to focus on is the 482, because that's what gives our company purpose. And that's what has been a huge competitive advantage for us, because people want to wake up knowing that they're working for 482,000 pensioners who have paid in their whole life and will look forward to living from that on a go-forward basis. And I would way sooner wake up working for 482,000 pensioners than making some institution a little more money or making some billionaire a little more money. And I know that our cast of people that wake up and work for us every day feel exactly the same way. And it is a huge competitive advantage because it's that purpose that gets extra efforts out of people on a daily basis. I'll leave you with a few career highlights very quickly. And I know I'll be 2 or 3 minutes. Is that good? The first is clearly from my grandfather, my father, cycles and finishative. Those very things now run through everything we do at Oxford. Business travels at the speed of trust. That was said to me by one of the great contractors in this country. It means a lot, and I think it says something to all of us. Business travels at the speed of trust. Culture is critical. Whoever said that culture eats strategy for lunch, that was an understatement. Culture is critical, and it all starts with being good to each other in an office environment. And if you're good to the person that's left and right of you, the odds are they come to work a little happier and they're nicer down the hall, and the odds are when that happens, they're better on the next floor, and the odds are when you create a culture like that and you interface with your customers. Oxford interfaces with 1.5 million customers a day. The odds are you're better to your customer. When you're better to your customer, they want to do business with you. When they do business with you, the business does better, you're happier, the board's happier. It all starts with culture. Surround yourself with elevator people. My favorite prof at Columbia University said 2 kinds of people in this world: elevator people, basement people. I still, when I go to interviews, I'm sizing everybody up, so be careful out there. And if you surround yourself with positive people, how great is that? Dream big, and my dad has always said, if you don't believe in tomorrow, you shouldn't be in business. Be your best self. It's hard to be, people will suss out if you're not authentic every time and everywhere, and just be the very best you can be, and that, if you bring that to the game every day, it makes a difference. And this one I like a lot, and it's just leadership is not a title. And we're all seeing out there in the world today, presidents, prime ministers, CEOs, and the like, who think by definition of the title that makes you a leader, and it's just not so. And we're seeing people in the world today that think that leadership's about division, and I think it's about bringing people together. And we see people that talk about, diversity, inclusion, and all those very important elements today as a threat, and I think we all know that we make better decisions when we open the doors to better thinking, including diversity and inclusion. So leadership is not a title. You have to earn it every single day with every interaction, and people forget that sometimes. And a great economist once said to me, these aren't the best of times, they're not the worst of times, but this is our time. And I think it's important for all of us to realize that we have one walk on the planet, and we're all dealt a certain deck of cards, and some days it's a good one, and some days it isn't. My deck today is a lot different than it was 2 weeks ago, and you just make the very best of the cards you're handed, and you take the expectations that are put to you, and you try to better those expectations. Michael Latimer isn't here. He's the one that brought me into Oxford. He's the one that's recently given me this opportunity to OMERS. He's been a great friend of mine. And Michael Turner, who will now be the president of Oxford, I just want to ask everyone in this room to get behind him. He and I, this is a picture from many years ago, as you can tell. We've worked together for 22 years. He is terrific. He's customer-focused. He's customer-facing. He gets the new economy. He'll take the business to places that I could never have taken it. So please, in this community, get behind Michael. And my final thank you, I'll say 3 things. I'll say to my dad, in the spirit of initiative, this speech is over, Dad. I'll say to the Canada Club, thank you again. You've done a marvelous job for 120 years. Please keep up the good work on behalf of all of us. And I'll say to the rest of us, we are truly in the greatest country in the world. And we have to continue to remind each other of that. And we have to continue to cheer for each other in working together and unlocking more and more of these great Canadian success stories. This is our time, and the only limitation I think we have is dreaming big enough. And if we support each other, no matter what you hear in whispers or drunken yells or tweets, nobody can touch us. So good luck. Thank you.
Wow. I don't know what else to say. What a truly remarkable Canadian success story that you just shared with us. I'm hugely impressed. The career advice that you just gave on the slide, leadership is not a title, is one that certainly resonates with me. You've clearly demonstrated that through your career and what you've been able to build, so incredibly impressive. And Hudson Yards, I don't know if you've seen it, but I was in there, and it is a very impressive development. So now I have a few questions for Blake from the audience. And so thank you for the questions. The first question is from one of our students. With the advancement in disruptions in technology, how does Oxford capitalize on this disruption?
Very good question, very topical question, and very real. There are a litany of assaults to the very business model of old assets, and some would argue that the big property companies are becoming fossils. And that is a change. But, you know, also, when you look at great companies, they learn how to adapt with the times. And so we have a team, in fact, I think we had 20 people in a boardroom for 2 or 3 months earlier this year, and we gave them a blank canvas and said, assault everything we do. Criticize our leasing process, criticize our construction processes, criticize how limited we are in technology, and tell us why you think we're going to wake up as one of those turkeys on Christmas Day. And the truth is we have a band of young, bright people who are forward-facing. We are investing heavily, heavily, heavily in technology. We get where the disruptions are coming from. We've seeded, at this table, we've got some partners, some of the new startup technology, real tech ideas. And by the way, Michael Turner is one of the foremost thinkers on this very topic and is the new freshly minted president of Oxford. So I'm happy to talk details, and I'm happy to give you some living examples, but we're taking the terrific model we have, we're marrying it to the new economy, we are embracing the new economy, and we have allocated a pile of money for investments in good ideas that we can actually use on our platform. And when we use them, they tend to do a little better because they use our name to go to others. And by definition, we'll do better with that investment just by being early into the party. So that's how we're looking at it.
Great, thank you. With your deep experience in this city development, what are the highest priorities to take this city into the future?
So this will be a funny answer because, you know, the obvious answers are infrastructure, the obvious answers are expediting the development process, the obvious answers are cutting through the red tape and getting things going. I actually think the more that information and technology affect our very being, the more we need to get communities together in public spaces, in arts, in town halls, in pubs. And it scares me when I see particularly the new generation all glued to this. And what I'd love to see our city do is give us more reasons to be outside, more reasons to interact, more reasons to be part of the community. Because after all, it is a human, you know, environment we're in, and the bricks and mortar and the infrastructure are to bring us together, not to isolate us and get us focused on just those things.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. This is a good question. What are you the most proud of aside from your children?
My wife's here. You didn't include her, so that's the natural answer. Do you know what? I think it's always people. It's always, I think it's not assets, it's not bottom lines, it's not math, it's about people. And so what I'm most proud about is, again, my grandfather would always say, if you're going to go to a campsite, you leave it better than the way you found it. When I'm talking specifically about Oxford, I'm incredibly proud that what we started with is very different than what I'm moving on from, and we've got an unbelievable team of people that can do with it things that I hadn't dreamt about. So I think it's the legacy of the people and the culture that we have created, all working together, and many of them are in this room, and I think that's what I will remain most proud about at this window in my career.
Great. Last question. Good last question here. What, in your opinion, is Canada's role in leading a sustainable future for the next generation, our children?
So there are 4 people at that table that could answer this question better than I can. About 10 years ago, we put together a sustainability team at Oxford that has made this a massive focus. And by the way, it's a win-win-win. It is the right thing to do for the society. It's the right thing to do for our tenants because they're calling for it. And frankly, the math, it actually pays coming out the other end. So you would be irresponsible not to be focused in the built form on the environment and everything you can do to improve it for the future generations. And so that team have won literally hundreds of awards all over the globe for Oxford in leading on that very topic. Again, probably not the place to get into the detail, but I think the one takeaway is if anyone ever thinks it's an expense to invest in sustainability and new things that make our planet better, they're wrong. It's an investment. And so that would be my take. Yeah.
That's a great message. I'm now going to ask Nikki Holland, who's a director at the Canadian Club, to come up and give the formal thank you.
Wow, to follow Blake. So, Mr. Hutcheson, Blake, thank you very, very much for joining us today, for sharing the incredible Oxford story. It's clear to see why real estate is doing so well. It's almost as clear as your passion and your enthusiasm. I'm a little bit disappointed. I thought those secrets at the end of the slide were secrets that we shared amongst the two of us. But I know I speak for everybody in this room. You taught us something today. The first time we met, you taught me that business travels at the speed of trust. We've built trust, and I know that you've built trust with many people in this room. We welcome and we are excited to see what you're going to do at OMERS. We congratulate you. Thank you for coming today. And before we conclude, I just want to thank MediaEventSpace.ca, Canada's online space, and WVC for live streaming today's event. To learn more about the club, please join us at thecanadianclub.org. And thank you so much again for joining us today.